The year was 2021. The skies over Luzon, Philippines were weeping. A relentless typhoon had unleashed its fury. It turned streets into raging rivers and homes into watery graves. For days, the rain fell without pause. It honestly felt like the world was drowning. People clung to rooftops, their desperate cries lost in the storm's roar. The water just kept rising. Hope was a flickering candle against a hurricane. It was, well, a scene of utter devastation. The people of Luzon needed a miracle. They needed a sign that they had not been forgotten. They looked to the heavens, not for more rain, but for a savior. Then, a new sound cut through the howl of the wind. It was a deep, powerful rumble. It was not the sound of thunder. It was the sound of engines. Through a break in the dark, bruised clouds, a massive silver aircraft appeared. It was a KC-135 Stratotanker. For many, this plane was a symbol of military might. It was a relic of past conflicts, a machine of war. But on this day, it was not carrying weapons. It was not there to refuel fighter jets. Its great belly was filled with something far more precious. It carried food, water, medicine, and the promise of survival. It was a lifeline. The huge plane descended with a grace that really defied its size. It looked like an angel with silver wings. It brought hope to people who had lost everything. The sight of it was more than just a delivery of supplies. It was a message that help was on the way. A message that the world was watching and cared. For the stranded and the desperate, the roar of its engines was the most beautiful music they had ever heard. This warplane, born for conflict, was now an instrument of mercy. Its mission had changed. It was no longer just a Stratotanker. It had become a lifesaver. This was not the first time the KC-135 had answered such a call. Its transformation from a Cold War warrior to a humanitarian hero is a remarkable story. It is a story of adaptation, of ingenuity, and of human compassion. The plane that once supported bombers over hostile territory was now dropping life-sustaining aid to families in need. It shows how a tool of war can be repurposed for peace. It demonstrates that the same strength used to project power can also be used to deliver kindness. The Silver Angel of Luzon was rewriting its own history, one relief mission at a time. To understand the KC-135's new role, we must look back at its past. The aircraft was born in the tense atmosphere of the Cold War. It first flew in 1956. Its primary job was critical. It was a flying gas station for the United States Air Force. Its mission was to refuel long-range strategic bombers, like the B-52 Stratofortress. This allowed them to reach targets anywhere in the world without landing. The KC-135 was the backbone of America's nuclear deterrent. It ensured that the nation's bombers could stay airborne, ready to respond at a moment's notice. It was a silent guardian, a key player in a global chess match. Then came the Vietnam War. The conflict in Southeast Asia tested the KC-135 in new and demanding ways. The skies over Vietnam were crowded and dangerous. American fighter jets and attack aircraft flew countless missions. They needed fuel to stay in the fight. The KC-135 was there for them. It flew missions day and night in all weather conditions. It refueled thirsty F-4 Phantoms and F-105 Thunder Chiefs. It allowed them to stay on station longer, to protect ground troops, and to complete their objectives. The tanker crews flew with courage and precision, often close to hostile airspace. Their work was not glamorous, but it was essential. The KC-135's role in Vietnam was about more than just extending range. It was about saving lives. Many pilots returned from missions with their planes heavily damaged. They were often low on fuel, struggling to make it back to base. A rendezvous with a KC-135 was their only hope. The tanker crews would guide the crippled aircraft in. They would transfer precious fuel that meant the difference between a safe landing and a tragic crash. Countless pilots owe their lives to the steady hands of a KC-135 boom operator. This legacy of being a lifesaver, even in a war zone, was a hint of the plane's future. The plane became known as a friend in high places. Pilots knew that no matter how bad things got, the Stratotanker was their lifeline. This reputation was earned through thousands of successful missions under extreme pressure. The KC-135 proved it was more than just a machine. It was a reliable partner in the sky. It was a symbol of support and endurance. This history of dependability, forged in the crucible of war, is what made its later transformation possible. It had already proven it could save its own. Now, it would learn to save others. The seeds of its humanitarian future were planted in the skies of Vietnam. The KC-135 Stratotanker is, honestly, an engineering marvel. It was designed in an era of slide rules and drafting tables, yet it remains in service today. Its longevity is a testament to its incredible construction. The aircraft was built by Boeing, based on the same design as the iconic 707 airliner. But the KC-135 was made for a tougher life. It was built with stronger materials and a more robust structure. It had to withstand the stresses of military operations. It had to carry massive loads of fuel and operate in harsh conditions. The designers knew this plane had to be dependable, so they overbuilt it. They created a machine that could last for generations. The secret to its long life is not just in its original design, it is also in the meticulous care it receives. Every KC-135 is maintained with an incredible attention to detail. Air Force maintenance crews are like surgeons for this aging giant. They inspect every rivet, every wire, and every hydraulic line. They follow strict protocols to ensure the aircraft is safe and ready to fly. These planes have been reskinned, rewired, and re-engined multiple times over their lifespan. It is a continuous process of renewal. This dedication keeps a fleet of 60-year-old planes flying missions around the world as if they were brand new. Think about that for a moment. An aircraft designed in the 1950s is still a critical asset in the 21st century. Some of the pilots flying these planes today are the grandchildren of the first crews who flew them. This is almost unheard of in aviation. The KC-135 has outlasted many of the aircraft it was designed to refuel. Its airframe proved to be so strong and so adaptable that the Air Force kept finding new ways to use it. This durability is what makes it such a valuable asset for humanitarian missions. It can fly long distances and land on runways that might challenge more modern, delicate aircraft. The plane's endurance is legendary, but it is not just about the airframe. The crews who fly and maintain the KC-135 have a special bond with it. They know its quirks, they know its strengths, they trust it. This deep relationship between human and machine is part of what makes the Stratotanker so special. It is more than just a piece of equipment, it is a trusted partner. This reliability, proven over decades of service, gave planners the confidence to send it into disaster zones. They knew the KC-135 would get the job done, no matter how difficult the circumstances. Its strength became a source of strength for others. What makes the KC-135 so adaptable? The answer lies in its cavernous interior. The plane was designed primarily to carry fuel. Most of its fuel is stored in tanks below the main deck and within the wings. This leaves a large open cargo area on the main deck. This space is about 80 feet long and 11 feet wide. Originally, this area was used to transport support crews and spare parts for the bomber squadrons it served. It was a secondary function, but it gave the aircraft a versatility that would later prove invaluable. The designers may not have envisioned it, but they had created a plane that could be both a tanker and a transport. This large, unobstructed space is like a blank canvas. It can be configured in many different ways. For its military transport role, seats can be installed to carry dozens of passengers. Pallets of cargo can be loaded through a large door on the side of the fuselage. This flexibility is the key to its humanitarian mission. When a disaster strikes, time is critical. Relief supplies need to be moved quickly. The KC-135's cargo hold can be rapidly loaded with pallets of food, water, tents, and medical supplies. A single KC-135 can carry up to 83,000 pounds of cargo. That is a massive amount of aid delivered in one trip. The transformation for medical evacuation is even more impressive. The same cargo floor is equipped with fittings that can secure litters or stretchers. In a matter of hours, the empty hold can be turned into a flying hospital ward. It can be configured to carry dozens of patients, both ambulatory and non-ambulatory. Medical teams can set up monitoring equipment and provide in-flight care. This capability, known as aeromedical evacuation, is a critical part of military medicine. It allows wounded soldiers to be moved quickly from the battlefield to advanced medical facilities. The KC-135 has performed this mission for decades. This dual-purpose design is what made the KC-135 the perfect choice for disaster relief. It did not require a brand new aircraft, it just required a new way of thinking. The very features that made it a good military support plane also made it an ideal humanitarian platform. It had the range to cross oceans. It had the capacity to carry significant loads. And it had the flexibility to be whatever it needed to be: a cargo hauler, a passenger transport, or a flying ambulance. The heart of this giant, its open cargo bay, was ready for a new and noble purpose. It was ready to carry hope. The change from a military tanker to a relief vehicle was not just a matter of loading different cargo. It required ingenuity and quick thinking. During disaster relief missions, crews had to adapt the aircraft in real time. The standard cargo pallets used by the military were perfect for moving large quantities of supplies. These pallets, preloaded with essentials like bottled water and ready-to-eat meals, could be rolled into the KC-135's cargo bay and secured in just minutes. This system allowed for an incredibly fast turnaround on the ground. A plane could land, unload tons of aid, and be back in the air for another load in a very short time. The real genius came in how they used the plane for medical missions. For Operation Damayan in the Philippines, following the devastation of Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, the KC-135 became a crucial medical link. Air Force medical teams, known as aeromedical evacuation squadrons, transformed the cargo hold. They installed stanchions that could hold multiple layers of litters. They brought on board portable oxygen, heart monitors, and emergency medical kits. The plane's electrical system, designed to power military equipment, was used to run life-saving medical devices. The tanker became an intensive care unit in the sky, staffed by doctors, nurses, and medical technicians. Personal stories from these missions highlight the plane's impact. One crew chief recalled how they modified the cargo loading system to gently handle delicate medical equipment. They used straps and padding meant for securing military hardware to protect IV drips and ventilators. A flight nurse spoke of the challenge of caring for critically ill patients at 30,000 feet. The constant hum of the engines, the changes in air pressure, and the limited space all tested their skills. Yet they provided top-notch care, turning a noisy, utilitarian space into a sanctuary of healing. They saved lives in a fuselage that was designed to support missions of destruction. These missions were a masterclass in improvisation. For example, the plane's communication systems, designed for coordinating with fighter jets, were used to relay patient information to hospitals on the ground. This ensured that receiving facilities were ready the moment the plane landed. The boom pod, the station at the tail of the plane where the boom operator lies to refuel other aircraft, became a makeshift observation deck. From there, crews could get a better view of the devastation below and help guide relief efforts on the ground. Every part of the KC-135 was re-examined and given a new purpose in the service of humanity. Operation Damayan, the U.S. military's response to Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, was a defining moment for the KC-135's humanitarian role. The storm was one of the most powerful ever recorded. It left a trail of destruction across the central Philippines. Millions were left homeless. The infrastructure was shattered. Roads were impassable. Airports were damaged. Getting aid to the hardest-hit areas seemed impossible. The city of Tacloban was virtually wiped off the map. People were in desperate need of food, water, and medical care. The world watched in horror, and the call for help went out. The KC-135s were among the first to answer. From bases in Japan and Guam, the Stratotankers began a relentless airlift. They flew into airfields that were barely operational. The runways were littered with debris. There were no ground crews, no fuel trucks, and no air traffic control in the conventional sense. Pilots had to rely on their skill and experience to land the massive jets safely. Once on the ground, the crews worked with incredible speed. They would unload thousands of pounds of supplies by hand, passing boxes and bags down a human chain of soldiers and volunteers. Then, they would reconfigure the aircraft to take on evacuees. The flights out of Tacloban were just as critical as the flights in. Thousands of people were stranded, many of them injured and sick. The KC-135's became their escape. The cargo holds were filled with families who had lost everything. They were filled with the injured, the elderly, and terrified children. For these people, the noisy, crowded flight was a journey from despair to hope. It was a flight to safety, to medical care, and to a chance to rebuild their lives. One pilot described the look on the faces of the people as they boarded. It was a mixture of exhaustion, grief, and a dawning sense of relief. They knew they were finally safe. The operation was a massive logistical undertaking. Over a period of weeks, KC-135's, along with other transport aircraft like the C-130 Hercules and C-17 Globemaster, moved staggering amounts of aid and people. They delivered over 2,500 tons of relief supplies. They airlifted more than 29,000 people from the disaster zone. The KC-135 played a vital role in this effort, proving its worth as a flexible and responsive humanitarian tool. Operation Damayan tested the aircraft and its crews to their limits. They passed that test with flying colors. The plane had cemented its new identity as a true instrument of compassion and hope. Amidst the chaos of a disaster, the rescue of a single person can become a powerful symbol. During one of the relief missions in Luzon, this symbol was a young girl named Maria. She was about 7 years old. Her village had been washed away by the floodwaters. She had been separated from her family and was found clinging to the roof of a submerged building. She was weak, dehydrated, and suffering from a serious infection in her leg. Local rescuers brought her to a makeshift clinic at a damaged airfield, but she needed more advanced medical care than they could provide. Her life was hanging by a thread. A KC-135 configured for aeromedical evacuation was on the ground, preparing to transport a group of injured adults to a hospital in Manila. The medical team heard about Maria. They knew they had to take her. The flight nurse, a captain in the Air Force Reserve, made the decision. They quickly prepared a spot for the little girl. They gently placed her on a litter and secured her inside the aircraft. During the flight, the nurse and her team worked tirelessly to stabilize her. They administered antibiotics, rehydrated her with an IV, and carefully monitored her vital signs. The roar of the engines became the rhythm of their life-saving work. For the flight nurse, Maria was more than just another patient. She saw the face of her own daughter in the small, frightened girl. She held Maria's hand and spoke to her in a calm, soothing voice. She promised her that she was safe and that they would take good care of her. This small act of human connection, in the middle of a high-stakes medical transport, was a powerful reminder of what the mission was all about. It was not just about moving bodies from one place to another. It was about caring for people. It was about showing compassion in the face of suffering. The entire crew felt a special responsibility for their tiny passenger. Maria was delivered safely to the hospital in Manila. She received the surgery she needed and eventually made a full recovery. Her story spread among the relief workers and the local population. It became a story of hope. It showed that even in the worst of times, a life could be saved. The giant silver plane was no longer just a machine of logistics. It was the chariot that had carried a little girl to safety. Maria's rescue put a human face on the entire relief effort. It demonstrated the incredible impact that these missions had, one life at a time. The KC-135 was not just saving a community, it was saving individuals. These humanitarian missions do not happen in a vacuum. They are made possible by strong relationships and formal agreements between nations. In the case of the Philippines and the United States, a key framework is the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA. This agreement, signed in 2014, allows for U.S. forces to have access to designated bases within the Philippines. It facilitates closer cooperation between the two militaries. While its primary purpose is related to defense and security, EDCA has a profound impact on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. It is really a bridge built on diplomacy that allows for rapid, life-saving action. When a disaster like a typhoon strikes, EDCA allows U.S. aircraft like the KC-135 to be positioned and deployed much more quickly. Instead of having to fly from distant bases in Guam or Japan, they can operate from airfields within the Philippines, and that drastically cuts down response time. In a disaster, hours and even minutes can mean the difference between life and death. The agreement allows for the pre-positioning of equipment and supplies. This means that things like water purifiers, temporary shelters, and medical kits can be stored in the Philippines, ready to be loaded onto a KC-135 at a moment's notice. The agreement also fosters interoperability between the U.S. and Philippine armed forces. Through joint training exercises, Filipino and American service members learn to work together seamlessly. They learn each other's procedures. They build personal relationships and trust. So, when a real crisis hits, they are not meeting for the first time. They are a coordinated team, ready to tackle the challenge. A Filipino soldier knows how to guide a KC-135 on the ground. A U.S. pilot knows who to contact in the Philippine military for information. This teamwork is essential for an effective and efficient disaster response. It makes the whole effort stronger. EDCA and similar agreements are about more than just military logistics. They are a statement of partnership. They show that the two nations are committed to helping each other in times of need. When Filipinos see a U.S. Air Force KC-135 landing with aid, they see a friend coming to help. This builds goodwill and strengthens the bonds between the people of both countries. The diplomatic handshake that creates the agreement becomes a helping hand extended to a person in need. The legal text of a treaty is transformed into the tangible reality of food, water, and a flight to safety. The repeated success of the KC-135 in humanitarian missions has not gone unnoticed by the Philippine military. Leaders in the armed forces of the Philippines have seen firsthand the incredible value of a large, long-range, multi-role aircraft. They have watched the Stratotanker deliver massive amounts of aid and evacuate thousands of their citizens. They recognize that having a similar capability within their own air force would be a game-changer for their country. The Philippines is an archipelago of over 7,000 islands. It is also one of the most disaster-prone nations in the world. The need for a rapid, long-range aerial response capability is undeniable. As a result, the Philippine Air Force has expressed a strong desire to acquire its own fleet of multi-role tanker transport aircraft. They are looking at various options on the international market, planes that can perform the same dual missions as the KC-135. They want an aircraft that can support their fighter jets, extending the country's defensive reach. But just as importantly, they want an aircraft that can serve as a primary asset for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. It is a strategic priority for them. They envision a future where Filipino pilots fly Filipino planes to rescue Filipino citizens. The United States is supportive of this goal. Part of the partnership between the two countries involves helping the armed forces of the Philippines modernize its capabilities. This could include training Filipino pilots and maintenance crews on how to operate and sustain a complex aircraft like a tanker transport. It could also involve joint procurement programs or financial assistance. The shared vision is one of a more capable and self-reliant Philippine military. A military that can take the lead in responding to disasters within its own borders, while still being able to work closely with international partners when needed. This desire for their own KC-135-style aircraft is the ultimate complement to the Stratotanker and its crews. It is a recognition of the plane's effectiveness. The armed forces of the Philippines is not just trying to buy a piece of hardware. They are trying to adopt a capability they have seen demonstrated with profound success. They have seen how this flying giant can be a symbol of national resilience and hope. The legacy of the American KC-135 missions in the Philippines may one day be a fleet of Filipino aircraft, painted in their own colors, carrying on the same life-saving work for generations to come. For many years, particularly during the Cold War, the sight of a large American military aircraft, like the KC-135, could evoke feelings of apprehension. For some in the Philippines, it was a symbol of a foreign military presence. It was a reminder of a complex history between the two nations. The sound of its powerful engines could be unsettling. It represented a power that was distant and, to some, intimidating. The plane was associated with war, with global conflict, and with the projection of military might. It was a machine designed for a world of superpowers and strategic calculations, a world far removed from the daily lives of ordinary Filipinos. But something remarkable happened. Through its repeated missions of mercy, the KC-135 began to change its meaning. The image of the plane transformed in the public consciousness. It was no longer just a warplane. It became a symbol of help. The roar of its engines was no longer a sound of intimidation. It became a sound of hope. People in disaster-stricken areas began to look to the skies, waiting for the silver plane to appear. They knew its arrival meant that food, water, and medicine were on the way. They knew it meant that the sick and injured would be carried to safety. This shift from fear to affection is a powerful story. It happened because of the actions of the crews and the nature of the missions. The people of the Philippines saw American airmen not as occupiers, but as helpers. They saw them unloading supplies, caring for the injured, and comforting frightened children. They saw the human face of the military machine. The KC-135 became a bridge between cultures, a tangible expression of compassion. The aircraft that once refueled bombers was now refueling the human spirit. It was delivering a cargo far more valuable than jet fuel. It was delivering kindness. Today, in many parts of the Philippines, the KC-135 is viewed with genuine affection. It has earned a place in the hearts of the people it served. Children wave at it as it flies overhead. Local officials praise its crews. The stories of its life-saving missions are told and retold. The plane has become a part of their modern history. It is a testament to the idea that the tools of war can be used to build peace. The KC-135's greatest victory was not won in a battle. It was won in the hearts of the people it helped to save. The story of the KC-135 Stratotanker is a story of transformation. It is the journey of an aircraft born for the Cold War that found its noblest purpose in the storms of the 21st century. Its legacy will not just be about the number of aircraft it refueled or the number of hours it flew in military service. Its most enduring legacy will be written in the lives it saved and the hope it delivered. It is a story that proves that strength and compassion can and should go hand in hand. The plane is a powerful reminder that a nation's military can be a force for good in the world, an instrument of relief as well as defense. The KC-135's impact on the Philippines is undeniable. It has become an icon of humanitarian aid. It represents the best of the partnership between the United States and the Philippines. It is a symbol of what can be accomplished when two nations work together for a common, noble cause. Its missions have built bridges of trust and friendship that are stronger than any military alliance. The affection that many Filipinos feel for this aging aircraft is a testament to the positive impact of these missions. It has shown that military assets can be used to project not just power, but also humanity. As the KC-135 fleet continues to age, it will eventually be replaced by newer aircraft. But its spirit will live on. It will live on in the policies that prioritize disaster relief. It will live on in the joint training exercises that prepare future generations for these missions. And it will live on in the aspirations of the Philippine Air Force to field its own fleet of life-saving aircraft. The Stratotanker has set a standard. It has shown what is possible. It has created a blueprint for how military air power can serve humanity in its moments of greatest need. Its influence will be felt long after the last KC-135 has made its final landing. Ultimately, the legacy of the KC-135 is a human one. It is in the story of Maria, the little girl rescued from the flood. It is in the memory of the grateful evacuee who found safety in its cargo hold. It is in the pride of the flight nurse who provided care at 30,000 feet. The KC-135 Stratotanker, the old warrior of the skies, found a new and profound calling. It became more than a tanker. It became more than a transport. It became a vessel of mercy, a silver angel that brought light into the darkest of days. And that is a legacy that will never grow old.